All right. Hello, everyone. We're back, and we're here to stay. Well, we always were. Welcome to the new Super Geeks Live. I'm George. With me today is Carlos. How you doing?
Ready for action.
As usual. And then we got Justin. You feeling all right, Justin? How you doing?
Yo, what's going on?
That's his new avatar, Justin the Martian, or something. I don't know who he is. But
I haven't got it yet, but working on it.
Working on it? Okay. Well, that's fair enough. And we also have me. Oh, no, Ross. I haven't said hi to Ross. Ross, how you doing?
Doing good.
Are you ready for action, too?
I and my eyebrows are ready to go.
I was going to say, we got some people that are interested in your eyebrows.
Apparently.
And,
To which I can only say, kinky.
Oh, yes. Oh,
I
yes.
wish I had your eyebrows, actually, Ross. I did.
All right, so we normally have been doing our little opener animation thing, but we decided to give that a break today for reasons of sanity. All right, so Carlos, what's our first topic? We got a few today.
Yeah, our first topic looks like it is Terminator Dark Fate, and whether or not that title actually is a heads up about the future of this franchise.
Now, I know I've seen it and you've seen it. Anybody else here seen it?
Yeah,
That's
I have not.
I want to say it's been out a while, so maybe light spoilers. I don't think it's necessary to spoil this one in order to get the point across.
Although I might actually have the opportunity to go see a movie in theaters this weekend. Holy shit.
Which one?
Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Old school of you. Okay, boomer.
Yeah, nope, he's a little too young for
I
that.
have a child, which I take care of quite often.
Carlos, they have to be
I
your
don't
age
have
to
an
be a
opportunity
boomer.
to go see movies in theaters.
Yeah, they gotta be
being able to go
Carlos's.
see a movie in a theater is a big deal for me right now. Thank you.
That's right. And besides, Carlos, the only boomer around here is you. I'm not even a boomer. You have to be born in the 60s, I think.
Yes.
I get that confused.
Yeah, but Gen
Something like in
Xers,
64.
Xennials, and Millennials in this group here.
That's right. So I saw Terminator. Carlos, you've seen Terminator.
Mhm.
So why don't you lead us on your review of what you thought of Terminator Dark Fate? And we'll skip. I feel we don't need to spoil it in order to get the point across. So a lot of people are still wanting to see it. So Carlos, go ahead. What do you think about it?
Well, I think the best way to describe it, it was not a bad film. I didn't have a bad time going, but did it come anywhere near the quality of the first Terminator and especially T2? The answer would be no, because in many ways it was trying really hard to be T2 again. And that's a problem. You don't want a sequel that's exactly like the other sequel that preceded it. And I think it's been better received by critics than it has by audiences who haven't shown up by and large. Critics basically liked it, and they pretty well described my feeling about it, which is, it blows up real good, but it doesn't really break any new ground, and in many ways is it's just trying really hard to be T2, and we already had a T2. And then of course there are all the the conspiracy theorists who are subscribed to the get woke, go broke hashtag. What?
I had an argument with somebody, and Joe actually, who couldn't be here tonight, Joe actually jumped in to help. One of my friends was saying his only problem with this movie is that it was for the woke generation. And my point was that has nothing to do with the woke definition. It's having a strong female.
Yeah, I mean, what they're saying is that they shoehorned in, more females. They got rid of males, especially white males, and and actually, I thought that was one of the best parts. The return of Linda Hamilton, was probably the best thing about this film. Number one. The second best thing was the return of Linda Hamilton and Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was fantastic in this.
Right.
The problem was, the story, again, a redux. It didn't break any new ground. And after, I'd been thinking about it for a week, it occurred to me that, is there really any future to this franchise? Because they have tried so many different things with the Terminator franchise, and none of the sequels has come anywhere near as close as the success of of the first two, especially the second one. And and I liked Genesis.
I actually did too.
Again, it's because I didn't think of it as a sequel. I just thought of it as, because it's so far off the beaten track in terms of, what classic Terminator was like. I just sort of thought of it as its own movie. And, and I like time travel, and it at least explored what some of the implications of that were. The problem is that I think people are expecting something different from a Terminator movie than these sequels actually provided. And it just wasn't delivering. It couldn't find a way to deliver after T2. I think the hype here was that the return
of the older actors. I mean, not just he's always come back a few times.
Well, I think even more than that was the return of James Cameron as a producer. Would somehow break that curse, and unfortunately, it didn't.
And he fought behind the scenes big time with Tim Miller, and he talks about it very candidly and transparently. He says the best stuff comes out of the conflict between a producer and the director.
I will tell you that's true. In my case as well.
Yep.
I fight with my directors all the time, but it makes a better film.
It does.
And
if you get Yes Men, you get what George Lucas did with the prequels.
Yeah. Well, yes, you do. But the thing is, I have two rules about it. One is have the fights, but don't have them in front of cast and crew.
Yeah. That's
as far as cast and crew are concerned, you are lovers and you love each other. Mom and dad do not fight in front of the kids. And the second rule is have all your fights and fight as much as you want before you start shooting. You should have resolved most of those creative differences before you even set foot on set, so that when you do have disagreements on set, they are hopefully minor and also hopefully short-lived. So I think that's true.
What would you give the movie out of 10?
Out of 10, I would give it a 7, maybe 7.5. I would give it that. I mean, I think it was a worthy effort. There was some fun, but the thing is, you can only have so many explosions. Aren't we getting tired of explosions? I think people
not according to Michael Bay.
Well, I got tired of Michael Bay a long time ago, but
for me, when I saw it, okay, so I agree with almost everything you said, except I remember back when the Sarah Connor Chronicles, which I loved, came out.
Yes, I'm so glad you brought that up.
Go ahead, finish your thought. Well, I was going to say, up until a certain point, I was like, okay, this is cute that they're doing this thing, but what really got my juices flowing up here is the possibilities when they had that one revelation before the show got canceled, where this had become a new timeline and it was separated from everything we've seen in the movies, which gave it free reign to now be like JJ thing, Kelvin Universe. It became its own entity so that universe no longer has any beholdenness, if that's even a word, to be beholden to.
Well, I mean, and that's basically what happens in this movie too.
That's what I was getting to. But they tried to do that with Genesis. But see, here's the funny part about this movie. It's unlike the mishmash of other films like Salvation and T3. T3 is actually my favorite of the original three. Everybody loves T2, but I like T3 the best. Is that this movie was not just a sequel to T2, it was a sequel to Genesis as well. It took T2 and Cameron followed up what he would have done.
Not really.
And there was a lot of things from Genesis that spilled over.
Sure, but that's happenstance.
But again, they changed things in that movie too.
As far as Cameron is concerned, there were no sequels. This is a direct descendant of
and that's where he and Tim Miller clashes, from what I heard. And but anyways,
I think that's like a canonista kind of
on its own merit though. I think it's funny that there was even people arguing about how Arnold could age. I rewatched a clip from Terminator 2 where he actually comes out and explains that he will age because he's got a bio outer shell. It's like organic flesh, and it will age. He actually says this in Terminator 2 long before he was ever returning in one of these older movies. He actually said a detailed explanation, and then people going, why is his thing old? And James Cameron went online and said, because of the same reason they said in my movie, which is that it can age. It's just the organic flesh. The skeleton is the
that's nitpicking though. I mean,
that's nitpicking. About that. But as far as Linda Hamilton and how, without spoiling, a lot of people have heard about the big spoiler, but we're not gonna ruin it for people who haven't heard.
Please don't. Thank you.
Good. The thing about that, what they do different in this movie that's causing some split hairs and people saying woke and all that stuff, it isn't just because of the female. Linda Hamilton, right from the beginning, was a badass female, and that's not the thing that makes people say. There's another reason why.
But they never brought her back. That was
not as Linda Hamilton as her, right? It's other actresses, but in Genesis, but that's not a movie. But the thing
I'm talking specifically about Linda Hamilton.
Yeah, that's true. But the thing is that there are certain things that happen in this movie, and it will. They knew that there are certain expectations when you watch a Terminator movie, that there's a certain narrative you have to fit within. And they flipped the script, and they thought they were being clever. And now that's the argument. Were they really making things that much different, or were they flipping the script so that there's a whole new path of where things go from here? In my opinion, a little of both. I think that it's interesting, and I think James Cameron explained why he did that. And again, I'm not going to spoil it, but I get where he was coming from. If you have to try to make it different, that's the way to go. You subvert that big expectation.
The problem is,
and there is a problem.
That's the only thing they did different.
Yeah.
Everything else was a retread, and that I think is what dooms the movie. People aren't going because they know this spoiler. Most don't.
They try to spruce it up a little with the girl, the character being a cybernetic, whatever she is, enhanced human. But it doesn't really work on that level that much. It just becomes another.
I think she was fine, but that's not the crux of this problem. Is, the reason I'm glad that you brought up the Sarah Connor Chronicles.
Yeah, what was your reason?
Is because that worked. Now, obviously, it didn't get the ratings that Fox wanted it to, but I think that's because Fox doesn't know how to market its sci-fi shows very well. And I think
Summer Glau and Linda Haiti. Oh man.
Yeah, she was fantastic. And
yes.
and what's his name? Thomas, the guy who played John Connor.
I'm still here.
Don't care about him.
Oh, yeah, I forget his name.
He was great. I thought he was a good character. And it what this reminds me of is Star Trek. Star Trek does not work as well as in motion pictures, as feature films, as 2-hour self-contained movies. It works excellently as a television series because the kinds of themes and characters that it builds work best from a story perspective over time. And I think that the value that you see in the Sarah Connor Chronicles is a testament to that. You had the room over the course of, there were 2 seasons, weren't there? Over the course of 2 seasons to explore things, let things unfold, let things develop, try out some things. And you just don't have that flexibility, when you have so much money at stake as you do on these blockbuster films. And
the movies also didn't have Summer Glau, just saying.
Yeah, well, I mean, but it did have
Lena Headey was a great Sarah Connor.
Lena Headey was a fantastic.
She was
Sarah
great.
Connor. But so to me, that's if they had brought Sarah Connor Chronicles today, and put it on something like CBS All Access or some
streaming with more budget,
something streaming that's not a broadcast, mainstream broadcast network, where
maybe they will
live well in a niche. Like provided by Netflix or CBS or Amazon Prime, Disney Plus.
It's not too late to do that.
All of these. Well, and it might happen. It won't for a while. I mean, every time. I mean, this franchise is a franchise that will not die. People keep trying to bring it back, even though, movie after movie after movie just doesn't do well. But somehow they're able to convince studios to put, but let's put in another $180 million into it, plus, all the, another $100 million.
And speaking of that, go ahead, finish your thing first.
Marketing. Well, I mean, there's something about it that does have legs, but unfortunately, I think you're seeing it better. Those legs run better on television, especially the kind of television we do today, than in motion pictures, in feature films.
Justin, Fox sucks. We should talk about how poorly Terminator's The Dark Fate did after its opening weekend. Had a good opening weekend, but then just...
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Do you think people are expecting too much of these kinds of movies?
No, I think they're just hopeful that it can actually come back, or I'll be back, come back, and actually...
I mean,
No, I don't think people are hopeful at all, or they would have gone. I think you're right,
What all do you
Ross.
need out of a Terminator movie?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of my point. Is like,
Yeah, that's a good point.
it's a retread.
Rinse and repeat. It's like a comic
you
book.
have to, yeah, and it kind of gets old, and the only way you can avoid it getting old is by having new wrinkles, new characters, compelling new characters, compelling old characters, and I think, like I said, repairing Arnold Schwarzenegger and Linda Hamilton was the best part of this film, but unfortunately, they didn't go much beyond that in terms of these.
Well, the other problem is that
characters.
even though they tried to correct a certain crutch without spoiling, that was always part of the narrative, they just replaced the crutch, and now they got a new crutch.
It's
so
just
no
a
matter,
different crutch, yeah.
it's just different crutch, and no matter which way you go, you're boxed in. You go.
And it's not
like
really.
it's
I
like
think it's
ping pong. It goes like
I
this.
think it's, I agree with the principle. I don't think it's a crutch. I don't think it's a crutch.
Well, but
either one.
The middle, there's a beginning, middle, and end, and this is all over the place. It's hard to forge a path for what the outcome should be when you're constantly like having people go back in time to try to do this to prevent this so that they don't stop this, and then they somehow undo and change this, and they got to fix that new thing, and it just becomes like a
It's at some point it's like it loses the compelling nature that made the first two movies so strong.
unique. Yeah, exactly.
So I mean that's why Sarah Connor Chronicles went down just one path for a long time. Like, what does the world look like? And actually, because we either have the present or the far future. We never know about the process in between the two, and that's really where it could be good. It could be compelling.
Well, Genesis tried that.
I actually really liked and appreciate what they tried to do in Genesis. I actually never saw Genesis until a couple of weeks ago. My friend had it on a Plex server or something like that, and I watched it. I actually thought it was pretty good, and I liked the way they changed it up enough to where you're seeing echoes of all the things that have happened in the first two movies with a twist, and then they did a great job. They've done a great job of de-aging Arnold since Salvation. I was watching clips from Salvation when he's fighting, Christian Bale and as John Connor, and I'm like, it was just as good back then as it was in Genesis for as far as how they did the technology to make him look like young Arnold. That was pretty impressive. But other than that, it's like, again, you get rid of Skynet, and then Genesis pops up. Get rid of Genesis, you got this new antagonist. So it's like one form versus the other, and then you got to figure out who they're trying to kill and what you got to do to stop them. And I just think that they box themselves into where they don't have a clear way to tell this story anymore. I think that's what they're trying to do. They were trying to clear the path for a new thing, and whether or not they'll get a chance to try again because of how poorly it's doing, we'll see. Because Genesis didn't do that good either, and they still made another one. So
and they still made, that's because of James Cameron. He still
they got him on board though after they'd already started things rolling, from what I heard.
Well, yeah, but that's in the development process.
It wasn't contingent upon him being there. Is what I'm saying.
No, but I think they're willing to take another shot at this level of funding when you have someone like James Cameron.
Well, Tim Miller too. I think that was what they had in their mind, that he could offer a new perspective on it, which he did.
Right, but that's not the reason they committed $180 million to this.
Yeah, that's probably true.
It's part of the reason. But again, these movies, the movies you're seeing at theaters today, and unfortunately, this is something that Steven Spielberg and George Lucas predicted 10 years ago. They said it's only going to be, huge tentpole movies at the movies anymore, and you're not going to see, the smaller films, the medium-sized films that used to be out there. There used to be plenty of them,
which they can now do with
that
streaming.
Talent and creativity has gone now to streaming platforms, which it's its own thing, but it is too bad that, I mean, there's some things about a large screen and seeing something alongside a large audience that that is an experience that I'm sorry to see some people are not getting. But that's been, I mean, that's been the case for
Well, let me ask.
a decade or two now.
Netflix is trying to get their stuff into theaters, at least for a limited time, and
so that they can have Oscar.
qualified.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
there is still Fathom Events that is releasing smaller scale movies out there.
Well, Doctor Who does it too. They put Day of the Doctor in the movie theater before, you can do these events. Ross and Justin.
That's not really where they're making their money.
Yeah, I know. But I'm going to ask Ross and Justin, because they're the two people here who have not actually seen the movie. But Ross is planning to, or he wants to, or he gets a chance to, whether it's in the theater or not. Let me ask you a question, Ross. When your reasons for wanting to see this movie, even though you haven't had a chance yet, like, what is it that you saw in the trailers that got you pumped to say, I will actually like to see this?
Well, the return of Linda Hamilton, for one.
That's a big check. Yep.
They actually put her into Gears of War 5 as a promotional thing.
Oh, did they?
As well as the T100.
Nice. I didn't know that. See, that's where gaming people come in handy.
Yeah, but seeing her return as an older badass that she is a big draw for me. The return of Arnold, less so. I mean, it's cool that he's there, but it could be anyone in the role of the Terminator. It'd be kind of cool. But I'm just interested to see where they're going with this one. I liked the direction that they went with Genesis. Salvation was an interesting take on the far future, and I'm just curious to see what they do next. The Terminator universe is interesting to me because
the comic book did a pretty good job that they used to have a long time ago.
It's fluid.
Yeah.
Through all the different iterations from the Sarah Connor Chronicles, throughout all the movies, they've shown that's this constant back and forth between Skynet's future and his genesis, or its genesis in the beginning, with John and quest to preserve itself by eliminating John Connor in the past, creates this kind of elastic back and forth through time that I think is worth exploring, and it's worth seeing.
Yeah. That's interesting. I forgot about that. That's the one thing that separates Salvation from all the others, is that one focused on the war in the future with John Connor versus people traveling back. So that was where it was different. So it's kind of like it was kind of like Mad Max, post-apocalyptic type gritty, but of course the story we all know. But we never saw them focus on the future like that. It was always a scene in each movie, but not the whole thing. So that was kind of the part that made that different. In all the other ones, it's somehow become either they want to prevent a change in the future, or in Genesis, there's already been a change. Just a matter of whether they can make sure that those changes stay on the right course to prevent Skynet. And so it was like,
Well, in a way, Genesis
I think you're missing the forest for the trees.
Yeah,
sorry,
you're probably right.
Ross.
In a way, Genesis built off of what the Sarah Connor Chronicles was trying to do. They took that leap forward in time to take themselves out of the equation. They did the same thing in Genesis, where they leaped forward and saw a creation of a new Skynet that changed the time.
A new version of it. Yeah. And Justin, what about you? When you want to go see a Terminator movie, what is it that you look for? What makes you go, I want to see this?
Well, I mean, I just want to go and see exactly what their take is on the story, because I mean, each of them add just a little bit of something to it. So the reviews aren't that great, but you know what?
The reviews are pretty good. It has a 71% tomato meter rating. It's not
bad.
It's got an 84% audience rating. So it's not a bad movie.
It's not.
As far as the people who've actually seen it are concerned.
It's
why people aren't choosing to go see it. That's the problem.
Which is just like the whole deal we were dealing with the anti-Discovery fans. Half of them never even watched the show, and they're all like, "Oh no, this or this or this."
I actually have a theory on. Why they might have suffered at the box office. Well, I don't really know if this actually makes a lot of sense. We're not going to say what it is, but like even Justin showed it. There's a certain spoiler about a thing that if you don't see the context, it could really turn people off.
Yeah. And I've seen this.
But again,
I don't know if that really.
I don't think that's why people aren't going.
Yeah, because a lot of people don't even look online for that stuff or care. So
what else is out that could be competing with it?
I don't know.
Nothing.
I don't think there's anything that's comparable.
Sometimes it's
close.
Sometimes it's the time of year a movie comes out. People might be saving up to go see Star Wars next month. I mean, you never know. Timing could be just the key. So
again, it's not the timing. It's just people aren't interested.
So the next part of this whole discussion is: can it be saved? Is it dead? Can it be saved? Like Carlos, you pointed out. I think it could be, but I think it would take someone with a new vision that's going to find a way to do it without completely having to start over and do it yet again, another reboot.
I mean,
well,
they
that's what
need to. I don't think.
I just don't think. I don't think it deserves to keep.
It should go to a streaming show. That's my opinion. It shouldn't be done in the movies anymore.
I mean, it's been done so many times, and you can only tell that story so many ways without having to completely start from something completely different. I mean, you would have to rewrite that book on Terminator from the start.
I agree with you. That doesn't mean someone's not going to try anyways.
Here's the problem. I mean, long-lasting, long-running film franchises need a bigger universe and bigger themes than Terminator has ever offered. Right. Its initial themes, its initial characters, they were great. They were compelling. It was two good excellent movies worth of content. After that, it started
just
trying to do what you guys are saying it should do, that it should rewrite the book, that it should do something different. It should, most of these did, going into the future, rebooting via Genesis. I mean, all these things were trying to take a different take. And unfortunately, you have an audience that's made up of people who don't want anything different. And, on the one hand, and on the other hand, you have a group of people who really want something different. And so there's not enough of each to turn it into the kind of box office powerhouse that it needs to continue to survive. And so what I think you want is something like a television series that can decide we're either going after this group of people or that group of people, and commit to that and really begin to widen this universe beyond just John Connor and Skynet or whatever we're calling it this time. It's still the machines that, are trying to, kill all humans. So, we don't really even know these machines, what really motivates them. They're just these death machines that have no.
That's about the only twist. Yeah, and that's about the only twist I could think of if I was trying to come up with something new was this new change. There's a split with whatever Skynet or whatever the new thing is called, where two AIs and one of them wants to save humanity, the other wants to destroy it. Instead of all one, kill them all. So you have a civil war within the AI Terminator thing helping humans.
What does a computer war look like? Right.
Well, I mean,
bites, it's not.
No, I mean like helping the humans as far as like physically with their own Terminators or whatever.
It's just the same old.
Mass Effect kind of explored that a bit.
Say that again.
Mass Effect explored that.
Yeah, they did with the guest. Yeah, a little bit. All right, so before we move on, I forgot to give my rating of the movie. You said 7 point.
I said 7.5. But in terms of, let's answer this two ways. One is your numerical score, and the other, should it live or should it die? All
right. Well, I'll go with. I'm going to say 6.8. I'm close to a 7, but not quite. Should it live or should it die? I think it deserves one more shot as a streaming thing in this new age where they can focus on and not going for the big flash and actually tell a longer thought out story like they've been proving you can do with any franchise these days. Mm-hmm. What's your should it live or should it die part?
I think Should Die as a feature film series.
You think so? I agree with that.
I just don't think that, like Star Trek, it needs more room to breathe, to be creative. Otherwise, because 2 hours is actually a very short amount of time to tell anything, because some of the themes behind Terminator are really interesting themes, but there's only so much you can do in 2 hours. You need to be able to explore some of the implications of these themes. And unfortunately, that doesn't work really well anymore. And the kinds of things people are willing to spend money to go to a theater and spend a ton of money on popcorn and soda pop anymore.
And I think I just think it's been proven that the streaming platforms can take a story that's been done, and we'll talk about this later with his Dark Materials, but Golden Compass, the original version of the story done in 2 hours, didn't do too well, but was flashy and expensive. It was the same story, but by doing it now, the way they're doing it is spreading it out and taking their time and making, doing more justice to the story. We'll talk about that later, but that's just a comparison. You could do more taking your time on streaming, spend a lot more less risk, spend a lot less money, and still.
Well, the stakes aren't as high.
Exactly.
That's the benefit of of the golden age of television that we're in right now, is that you don't have to be $1 billion worth of successful like you do on in feature films now.
Right.
You can afford to be. The terms of success are much lower, and the stakes are lower, and that gives you more creative freedom and and the ability to target who your audience is going to be and really commit to it and then deliver. And right now, it's got too many different kinds of audiences that have different expectations that conflict with one another, and that's what's killing this franchise.
I just noticed Justin's avatar is in Star Trek Bridge on Red Alert, it looks like. Is that what it is, Justin?
Yes.
That's cute. All right, let's go on to something that's been getting a lot of attention today from everybody. And it started with you, Carlos, but then new information came in that put more of a drama and interesting take on what we thought we knew. And that is ANOS and the Tardigrade appeal update and some of the things that came out after with certain pictures. Why don't you let us know what's going on with the update there?
Well, so Anas Abdeen, the creator of Tardigrades, an independent video game, never completed, never released. I think it's always important to point that out because
it's people, not even alpha.
Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't exist. It's a set of illustrations and partial videos that tell something of a story, but not anything really very coherent. So you're not talking about, a well put together. Yeah, not that it couldn't be well put together. I think, in fact, what I've seen of it, it could be a fun game. But we don't need to go down that path right now, other than to say that, his contention that Star Trek Discovery stole ideas from him, and that's why he's bringing this lawsuit. It was pretty clear to me early on that what was motivating this lawsuit for him was that he felt disrespected by CBS, not that he felt that he had necessarily a really strong case. I mean, he personally probably did, but he wanted to go after it because he felt like they disrespected him, and this was going to force them to respect him. And all you have to do is go back to his blogs back in 2018 when he started writing about this lawsuit, and you'll see that theme come through very quickly. This is very motivated by his feeling he was mistreated. But the case itself was never very strong, and it's something that CBS's lawyers wrote about early on. Back in December of 2018, so almost a year ago. If you read the dismissal letter that they sent as a kind of a heads up to the judge, and you compare that, so this is December of 2018, you compare that with the judge's ruling dismissing it eventually just a couple months ago in September, and you'll see that basically almost every single point they brought out are the points that she ended up saying is the reason why it doesn't deserve to move forward. It just doesn't make a strong case for copyright infringement.
Right.
It makes a strong case for there being, a good number of superficial similarities, but that's not what copyright infringement is. Copyright infringement must be substantially similar between the two works. And she looked at everything, the judge looked at everything. She watched all of Discovery. One thing we found out today was we saw a transcript from the only hearing that was actually held about this back in January. And, they start talking, the CBS lawyer starts talking about Klingons. And as a quick aside, she says, "Oh, I know about Klingons."
Yeah,
So-
didn't she also get confused on what's thinking Steam itself was a game, and then all these people were on this
Okay, first
one
of all, it wasn't her being confused. It was her being misdirected by the lawyers for Anas
yeah.
Abdin.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, you can't expect a judge to know everything. A judge depends on the facts that are offered by the attorneys. And in this case, Anas Abdin's attorneys deliberately misrepresented, the popularity of the game in order to make the case that that it was so popular that it had to have been seen by someone from CBS,
Right.
or someone on the discovery writing team, and that establishes the access to the work that is necessary. Again, this is a vital part of how you have to build a case for copyright infringement. Access to the work. You can't prove that copyright infringement happened if you can't prove that the person that you think infringed actually connected with the work that they're accused of stealing. And so that was the aim of that. And they did a lot of misrepresentation about saying, well, because YouTube has 5 billion views, therefore the views for our little old videos for tardigrades must by extension also be high, except that if you actually look at, YouTube actually provides the number of views for all these videos, and they are in several hundreds kind of category for Anas Abdin's views. The only ones that are bigger than that are the ones that have gotten a lot of attention as a result of the lawsuit, but the ones that haven't, never were very popular, and the ones that ended up being spotlighted by the lawsuit are the ones that didn't have a huge number of views prior to the lawsuit either. So, they just did not have a strong case for access. And so, long story short, they have a weak case. And so it was thrown out by the judge. And I think I mentioned in our last episode that in this kind of motion to dismiss, the judge assumes everything in favor of the what they call the non-moving party. So in this case, CBS was the one saying, we want you to dismiss this. So they were moving to do that. They put in the motion. And Anas Abdin was the non-moving party. So by definition, at this stage in a trial, in a case, the judge has to assume, gives Anas Abdin the benefit of the doubt. She assumed that all of the facts in his legal complaint were true, even though we know now that a lot of them weren't. But for her purposes, she assumed they were all true. Every single fact was true. And having made that assumption over here, she then went to look at what the implications were according to the law. She applied the law of copyrights to the facts that she assumes are true. And from that perspective, from that examination, it didn't make the case for infringement. Basically she said, okay, they might have copied stuff from you, but not enough.
Not enough to be substantial similarity. Yeah,
exactly. Therefore, it's not
smart
infringement. And
benefit of the doubt worked against them in this case. Yeah.
Sure. Well, and that's one of the things that we discovered today as a result of the filing of these two documents that are required for Anas Abdin's appeal to move forward to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, was that they had 4 points that they believe Judge Schofield got wrong at the district court level. And one of them was that it was inappropriate for her to separate the things in about the Tardigrade's game that were non-protectable. In other words, that are things that are either in the public domain or too generic, or just nobody can protect them because they're too commonly used. Like you can't copyright a tardigrade because they're a real creature that exists in life. So nobody can copyright a tardigrade.
Right.
you can copyright a tardigrade that looks a particular way, acts a particular way, interacts with other beings in a particular way, that has a character or a personality or communicates or whatever, just things that are very specific to your presentation of a tardigrade.
Like Tom and Jerry, if Tuffy, the other mouse, had the diapers, that was his signature, the gray mouse. You know, like if they try to make another similar character with the cat and the mouse, and he had the diapers on the other character, they could argue.
You can't copyright a tiger, but you can copyright Tony the Tiger.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah, good example.
You know,
or Count Chocula versus.
He has a certain shape. He has a certain voice. And so all of those things, although Tony the Tiger really is more of a trademark, but basically you're right. You know, you can't copyright tigers. You can't copyright Tony the Tiger. And so that's what happens here. She says, I assume everything is true. I assume that they did get the idea for their tardigrade from you, but even having done so, I'm comparing the exact specific expression of your tardigrade, Anas Abdeen, with the specific expression of the tardigrades that we saw in Star Trek Discovery. And guess what? They're not similar enough. They are two different, you know, they have generic qualities in common, but you got some things completely wrong, like insisting that they're blue, that they're both blue, when it's clear that they're not. So, I mean, things like that. So anyway,
right.
So now it's going to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. We have a much clearer sense of what the four things are that Abdeen's lawyers are objecting to. I won't go through all four of them now, but if you read my article on Axe Monitor, I go through all four of them there and kind of give some analysis.
I'll try and link that article to the YouTube final upload.
Sure, it's I'll send you the direct link so that you can put in the show notes.
Now, what's going on with the new information though that shocked everyone about the pictures and the death threats?
So I broke the story yesterday that that this case was very close, like literally like this close to being completely dismissed by the Second Circuit Court, because Anas Abdeen's lawyers, who have never been super competent, all you have to do is read through the court dockets, both in the original case and now the appeal, even though it's only, you know, a few weeks old, and you see deficient filing, late filing, you know, all kinds of problems with how these attorneys operate. Yeah, grammatical errors, math errors. You know, they couldn't figure out who the hell they were actually suing, and it took weeks to even serve the papers to the right part of CBS because they couldn't figure out who they were really suing.
Yeah,
I mean, this is the level of competence that we have in these lawyers, and so they were supposed to have turned in these two forms that basically, you know, explain the case, give the reasons why you're appealing, and provides the transcripts. It's not super difficult to fill out these forms. They were due on October 15th. Didn't happen.
Right.
So on October 24th, and they're warned, like on these forms, it says, if you do not turn these in 14 days after your notice of appeal, your case will be dismissed. Now, the courts usually give some leeway, and so on October 24th...
They give a grace period, yeah.
Yeah, they gave them 2 weeks, 2 more weeks, so that brought them to November 7th, today, or yesterday, rather, and to turn it in. And they turned it in literally just a few hours before the end of the court's day, before it closed for the day.
I'll be right back. Keep talking.
Sure. And... so they made it in by the skin of their teeth. And, you know, we're not entirely sure why. I mean, I broke the story that this was happening. And so lo and behold, you know, the next day, Anas Abdeen posts this letter that he claims to have received. It's a death, well, it's not exactly a death threat, but it's a threatening letter. It's a homophobic hate mail that says, drop the appeal, fag. And he posts a picture of it
and banned.
Yeah. So let me I'll share the the photographs with you. Hang on just a second. I will bring this up. There it is.
Did you really get Twitch, man?
No, but do we really need to share them?
Share what?
Well, there it is.
It's already there. Sorry. So this guy. So here the one on the left is the letter that Anas Abdin received. Supposedly, the little emoji there is covering the return address of the person who sent this. So he is claiming, and specifically said so at least twice that I've documented, is claiming that he knows who sent this to him. He's refusing to reveal who it is. So that's kind of a red flag to me. It's like, why do you think this person deserves anonymity? If he's saying stuff like this to you, why aren't you calling him out on it publicly? Many people on Twitter were like, why aren't you reporting this to the authorities if you say you know who this is? So that's one red flag. There's a whole other bunch of red flags that I mentioned in my coverage about this today. But so one Twitter user decided to check the handwriting against handwriting that Anas Abdin had posted with one of the hashtags he's been trying to promote, hashtag independent creator. So he, a few weeks ago, he posted this word independent, which he'd written with his own hand. And the guy was like, I've seen these letters before. And so he went through and circled the letters that are common in both images. And
that is pretty.
Look at the E's.
Remarkable.
The E's and the P's they are the same.
Yeah.
Because they're very consistent.
Yeah.
And this brings a whole new potential problem to this case. And we've seen this before in other things where, to generate sympathy, they fake these kinds of death threats. And in this case, they're not just generating sympathy, they're generating dollars. I mean, there's a GoFundMe that has raised more than $20,000 for the appeal.
You want to talk about substantial similarities? There you go.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Exactly. So that's what's happening today, is that, this happens to be a great way to distract people from the bigger problem, which is this, they almost got this appeal dismissed, and that the case is pretty weak. So, and it worked largely. There's hundreds of people who are like, we believe in you and us, and those Star Trek Discovery fans who sent this to you. I mean, there are even people out there who believe CBS hired someone to do this, which is just ridiculous. So he's continuing to stoke the and not just him. He has enablers who are doing this, the YouTube conspiracists like Nerdrotic and so forth, who
just hit over 500,000 subscribers.
Yeah, so there's a big platform for sympathy and antipathy towards CBS and Discovery, which is really part of what's behind all of this to begin with. And a lot of people have said
Joe.
that. Is Joe here?
Well, he's in the chat, and
he's in the chat room. Okay.
Yeah.
Hi,
and
Joe.
thank you, Brenda. Brenda said good one, George. Thank you.
Sorry, I lost my train.
Oh, sorry about that. You get easily distracted. Okay. You were talking about the handwriting similarities, and someone else remember exactly what he said? I don't remember. I was responding to people. Sorry.
Yeah, please don't do that,
I won't do that again.
YouTube conspiracists and
yes, thank
enablers.
you. YouTube conspiracists and enablers. Thank you, Ross. Yeah, so this is literally a campaign that is raising money, and that campaign depends on stoking hatred towards CBS and towards Discovery and towards people who like Discovery, and they're being pretty successful at it, to the tunes of tens of thousands of dollars. So that's what's at stake. That's why, and so for a lot of people who initially felt some sympathy for Anas Abdin, early on when it was like, this lone independent video game guy who's just, he's developing his game and he doesn't want to have that, disturbed or wrecked by the fact that there's so many similarities, supposedly between it and Star Trek Discovery. And so a lot of people were willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. But since he hooked up with Nerdrotic, what we've seen is now the demonization of his critics. Him trying to smear all Star Trek Discovery fans because of the actions of a couple of people whom we now know may not exist at all in reality. So it's become a problem where, he's now adopted some of the practices of the conspiracists and even potentially gone as far as manufactured this hate mail in order to continue to generate.
I'm wondering if he might have been counseled on calling that stunt by certain people, or if he actually thought.
Well, he was.
No, you.
It's
don't.
turned into that meme with the guy who sticks the stick in his own bicycle wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah, just for attention. I mean.
No, it's totally for attention, but I'm not going to go so far as to say Nerdrotic told him to do this, because I just don't.
Hey, I wasn't naming names. I'm just saying.
Well, I'm just using that as an example. I don't think anyone took him aside and said
he probably did come up with it on his own. Yeah.
He came up with it on his own. It's his own handwriting. Someone else, in fact, if someone else had been involved, they probably would have been the first to tell him, don't do it in your own handwriting.
I don't know. I wouldn't give him that much credit, but yeah, you're probably right. I mean, give him the benefit of the doubt.
Not to mention the fact that, all of the supposed death threats that he's made public are all homophobic. All of them. And I don't know if Anas Abdin is gay. I mean, I've come to assume that he maybe is.
No, but in his country, I think that was the point.
Yeah, but these aren't coming from his country.
No. What I mean is, I saw a post he made where he was saying, I'm not as mad if it was in Kuwait or whatever. It was something about like they knew that would offend him more to say that, to have his people see it from back home. I think that was something he was suggesting in one of his tweets, but I don't know.
Yeah, but then why publicize it yourself?
Yeah, that's a good point
too. If that's what you're worried about, why publicize it yourself? That you're
to show that they were trying to go to I don't know.
Except that it shines the light on him potentially being gay.
Yeah, actually, that totally discredits his entire point. You're right.
Exactly. And the thing is that supposedly these homophobic people who are sending these things to him are Star Trek Discovery fans, which, gets criticized for being too woke and having a lot of gay stuff going on. Lesbians and pansexuals and omnisexuals and actual homosexuals,
and lions and tigers and bears.
Oh my, yes. So, so why would someone like that defend their show by, why would someone who believes in a show that defends these ideas and these principles and these kinds of characters do so by calling out someone for being gay? I mean, that doesn't make sense either. So it's no surprise to me that he's not revealing who this is, because who would they be?
Right.
Who would do that?
Well, let's make a projected guess about the next step. Obviously, his appeal is either going to get rejected, tossed out, or it won't.
It's a long process before that happens. The next steps on this are that. Now that his attorneys have turned in these forms, they'll get a formal notification from the clerk saying, we accept these forms. By the way, we don't even know, these forms might be deficient because most of John Johnson's, the attorney, his filings are deficient. So there might be some
that guy again,
problem with it. I mean, the last one was that he submitted a PDF that did not have searchable text. He scanned
I'm thinking of Vic's attorney. Sorry, I got them mixed up.
Yeah, he scanned the pleading as an image and sent that in. And one of the rules for the Second Circuit Court is that all PDFs must be text searchable. So that was one deficiency right there. So we'll see what happens. I did check; these are text searchable. So so they have learned from their last mistake.
I'm still wrapping my head around the wording and the assumption that Steam itself is a game.
It was to give more. It was to make it seem like how could they plot that all these numbers are one area that they had to have
Yeah,
seen.
but it's false.
I know.
Yeah, it is
And a
false.
very
Kowalski
basic,
is who made me aware of that part. He
a
talked about it in
basic
his.
search is enough to show how wrong and false and misleading it was.
Mm-hmm. No, it was. I mean,
Yeah.
I've
no
been
excuse for it.
reporting on this for over a year, and
Yep.
one of the.
But you didn't become aware of that wording until they released that transcript, right? That was recent.
I was not aware of the wording that they used in court, but it's not dissimilar from the wording that they used in their legal complaint.
Oh, okay. I wasn't aware of that part.
I actually went back and looked at my articles from the time, and one of the criticisms I had about the legal complaint was that they kept trying to assume that because Steam may have 500,000 hits a day, that so must Anas Abdin's
Right.
Steam Greenlight game proposal, because again, it's not a game. It doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist, right? Just something that was advertised as in development.
They did the same thing with YouTube. They said, the YouTube pop is so popular. He's got videos on YouTube, therefore his YouTube videos are popular, and that's just
it's
that's
not
a logical
even
fallacy.
in Steam Labs anymore.
Yeah, it's when I go on Steam, I see a lot of those. I see a lot of those similar games in development.
It was replaced by Steam Labs, but the game was
Steam Labs,
updated to be included in Steam Labs.
Right. It migrated over to that. I know what you're saying.
No,
I'm
it's
just
not. It has.
No, it's not.
I looked.
Oh.
It's not there.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it in purgatory until this is over with? Is that what's going on?
I don't know.
Who knows? I mean, it has to be developed, guys. I mean, come on. I don't think they're necessarily turning it out. That Steam is turning it out.
He's probably just going to collect whatever he can out of this, and just even if he doesn't win in court, he's going to get all these donations he's been getting. So.
I actually asked him on Twitter. I was like, "Why don't you just take all this following you have, do a GoFundMe, and make your game?" He's like, "I don't need money to make the game."
Yeah, I saw that exchange.
He just wants to save face. I don't know.
He intimates in Twitter tweets to a number of people that the game might be finished. He deflects. He keeps deflecting about the status of the game, how close he is. We have no idea.
I heard that before by somebody who asked for money.
Well, I've heard that before. Yes.
Oh yeah, but you're a $2 holler.
I've been thinking it. But I haven't said anything.
You have. We know who you're thinking about.
Well,
So anyway, what happens next was your original question. So once they get the notification from the clerk of the court that it's been accepted and everything's okay, they have 35 days from that notification. And what's happening is, because this is an appeal of a motion to dismiss, pretrial motion to dismiss.
Yeah.
That entitles them to be kind of fast tracked in the appeals process. So what I'm about to describe to you is the fast track version of the appeals process, and it's not short, but it's not super long either.
I actually think I know, because I've been through it. Well, not me personally, but go ahead.
Right. So 35 days from now, or from when the clerk formally accepts the filings, Abdin's attorneys will have to turn over an appeal brief. And basically, it is a longer version of what they turned in today or yesterday, explaining why they deserve to have this case go to trial. And essentially, it's another try, another whack at the legal complaint that they submitted that was dismissed. Recall, by the way, that because it's an appeal of a motion to dismiss, they are not allowed to add any new arguments.
Right.
They're not allowed to add any new evidence. They're not allowed to add any new testimony. The 3-judge panel that's going to consider this appeal is going to look at exactly the same things that Judge Schofield saw.
Yeah.
And will make their ruling based on exactly the things that Judge Schofield saw. And based on that, I mean, her decision was a pretty good decision. It's grounded in black letter copyright law. It was not an esoteric case with regard to copyright. And so it's chances that these 3 judges are going to see it differently than she did are not very high, particularly when consider the fact that one of the criticisms that Epstein's lawyers make about the decision is that she used this particular kind of copyright test, this particular standard of review for determining that there was no substantial similarity. And they complained that that was wrong to use, except that that is the standard that's used by the Second Circuit. So, you know, each of the circuits, like if you go out to the Ninth Circuit where the Axonar case was tried, the standard for substantial similarity there is a completely different test legally than the one in the Second Circuit.
So with the three of them, the odds are they're gonna handle it the right way,
because they're going to look at it the way they always look at these cases.
Right.
You know, Judge Schofield didn't make up this thing out of the blue. She went with what her circuit does when it determines substantial similarity in copyright. So so its chances aren't very good. So anyway, that appeal brief is due in 35 days or so from now, depending on when they get the notification. From that point forward, when they turn it in, CBS will have 35 days from that filing to submit its appellate brief. So its answer to the appeal, Abdeen's appeal. And then after that, Abdeen will have 14 days to file a reply. And that's all the filings. And then at that point, it's a question of scheduling a hearing before the judges. If they ask for one, you're not guaranteed a hearing. They may make their decisions based on just these briefs and all of the other evidence that was considered in the original district court case. So there may or may not be a hearing. I kind of hope there is, because I would love to see some of this play out with real people in a courtroom. But it's also just as likely that they may make their decision based on just these.
Wait, would we ever get a chance to actually see it though? Did they video it? Or? I don't think we do.
No,
Right?
Most
just read the transcripts. Yeah,
you have to read the transcripts. But I would go to it. I mean, I would go to the courtroom and cover it.
Oh, you're within range of it. That's right. That would be interesting.
In range of it. It's in New York, and I'm on the opposite side of the country.
Why did I think that it was in California? I don't know why.
Yep. They're in New York.
Well, it gives you an excuse to go out east. There you go.
Exactly. I like to go to New York at least once a year, so this could be my trip. But we don't know when that's going to happen.
Right.
You know, once all because remember, their single hearing in front of Judge Schofield was in January. She gave them a
biscuit.
Was in January. They reported back to her in March, and she told them, even in one of the things we did learn in this transcript that was released about the January hearing, she gave them advance word. It could be months before you hear from me, because I've got a lot of other cases with a lot of other pleadings, and so I can't promise you it'll be quick. And it wasn't. So, you know, they turned in all this stuff back in March, and it wasn't until September. So it was 6 months later that almost exactly 6 months later that she issued her ruling, in which she went ahead and dismissed Abdeen's case. So so once all these things are turned in, it's anybody's guess how long it could be before the three judges come to their decision, and whether or not there will be
the tribunal
hearing in person. If there is, all three will be there. If there's not, they may confer. I'm not sure what the process is behind the scenes if they don't have a hearing, but you know, that's how that'll go. So it could be as soon as about 6 months. It could be as long as a year.
And in the meantime, he's going to keep
in the meantime,
using the death notes and the threats and the
death notes
donations
and holding out this idea that, you know, he feels like he needs tens of thousands of dollars for a media plan. For what? You know, why? He's not going to convince these judges.
He's already covered the lawyer's fees, from what I recall. So well, I don't know.
We don't know. I mean,
that's true. If it goes on that long, yeah, that's true.
But lawyers' fees are only part of what's going on here.
Right.
You know, his budget is also for additional legal consultations, presumably by people who know copyright law better than his actual lawyers, as well as technical experts who apparently he never explains why. But my guess is that it has something to do with trying to nail down their contention that somehow someone from CBS did see the game on Steam, and that's how it happened.
But again, they can't introduce new evidence, right?
Exactly. And that's the thing. But most people don't realize that. They feel like, he calls them their defense team when he's the plaintiff, not the defense. But
even if he discovers something, they're not allowed to introduce that in this appeal. So.
Exactly. And if he loses this appeal, he can't refile. It's dismissed.
Right. So I don't know what he hopes, unless he just wants to get the last word into the public or something.
Well, what he wants is money, or his.
Well, he's getting that anyways from the public. So
exactly. That's why it doesn't matter whether he wins or loses. The longer it's dragged out, the more that more money they can bring in.
Right. And then he can still get a last to put, even if he doesn't get used. He can publicly. Yeah, he can publicly just try to say, "I was right," even though the courts couldn't see it, or whatever.
I mean, they'll paint the courts as being unfair because they aren't going to allow. But this is a procedure. This is the way appeals have always worked in 200 years of this country's history. But already you're seeing people who are complaining that the judge must have been bought off by CBS because it's a mega billion-dollar corporation, and it's like. That's not really how federal government
I don't think CBS is that threatened by this guy as much as he wants to think they are. They just want to protect their copyright.
Exactly. They don't want to. Abdeen himself is fairly meaningless to them.
Well, in this case, they want to protect their.
But they don't want to create this. The reason they didn't settle with him, in my opinion, is that if they settle with someone with such a weak case. That opens the door to more people doing it and making.
There's at least some money, right?
Yeah, yep. I mean, and I'm sure that's why his two attorneys signed on. They thought this was going to be a quick nuisance lawsuit that CBS would just hand them over some money so they'd go away, and that's not what CBS did, and that's why we are where we are.
Yep. Well, definitely. Well, Carlos is on top of it. It's what he does. He's been reporting on this, like he said, for over a year. I remember when we first talked about it. So we'll keep on top of this. And obviously, we're not going to hear anything major for a while, but we'll definitely follow up on it because that's what Carlos does.
Yeah. If you want to keep posted, I encourage you to sign up for my newsletter, Axe Monitor Daily. It doesn't actually come out daily because, I have a life, but right. But I call it Axe Monitor Daily. Just go to axemonitor.com.
Axe Monitor when you get around to it.
Yeah. axemonitor.com. And you'll see in the menu there, it says daily newsletter. Click on there and that'll take you right to the archive of all the previous newsletters.
Yep.
And there's a button that just says, join the mailing list, and it's through MailChimp. So you've probably done it before.
No biscuits for an us. I like that, Justin.
And that's how you can keep up with the story without having to, go to our Facebook group or whatever. You'll just get something in your inbox that will say, the latest on tardigrades. And
I'll definitely link. You'll help me out there. I'll link it on YouTube and I'll post it like when after I edit this thing.
And post link to Ketwalski's video.
Of course,
because
because some of the information I cited, and I told him I would, that was stuff he pointed out about how they crunched the whole Steam misrepresentation of what Steam was and all that. That's actually important.
I talked to him and one of his producers about that early this morning. And I actually was going to report that too, more incidentally, just because, again, I substantially reported this already, almost a year ago. But actually seeing the words that were used to misrepresent this before a federal judge is a big deal. The problem is I only had so much time last night. I was up till 5 a.m, literally working on this newsletter, and I only had enough energy to do 3 stories, not 4. So,
well, that's the beauty of people. That's the beauty of a bunch of credible people looking into the same.
Yeah, looking at different perspectives, having different perspectives.
Collaboration of news people.
Yeah, well, no, we didn't really collaborate.
Well,
I think I did share the documents with them so they wouldn't have to pay.
We're all friends
for it, but all the rest of the reporting and investigation they did on their own, and good for them. I mean, the more information we can get out there about this, so that people are fully informed. because I just think it's a shame that, people who out of the goodness of their hearts are giving money to this case when it has so little chance of moving forward. And they're creating this impression that your money is going to somehow make a difference when it's really not.
Right.
People should know that before they start writing checks. I mean, there was one guy who wrote a check for, I think, $1,000 on the first day or the second day of it. It was like a lot of money all at once. And,
Yeah, and the only difference between this and certain other stories we've talked about in the past is I don't think he's, except for what I think is pretty clear that he's fake newsing his threats. It's pretty obvious. That doesn't necessarily mean his intention is to scam people. I think that he does. He's not trying to scam necessarily. I think that there's a certain cutoff point though, where if you say don't, I'm not going to tell you not to keep sending money.
Wait, he never claims that all this investigation, whatever, is going to help his appeal.
Right.
He just leaves that impression, and so he maintains plausible deniability about it.
Well, what he's doing. I mean,
he also lets other people do his talking mostly for him on his behalf. Although he has spoke up and used the sympathy card.
He's spoken up plenty. I mean, he did an entire interview with a German Star Trek news website.
Did he?
Yeah. I'm actually going to write about that a little bit because there's a little interesting story about this. Anyway, look for it in next week's Axe Monitor Daily.
When does that interview come out, or is it already out?
Oh, it's already out there. I can give you the link. They ask him some pretty good questions, most of which he dodges, the important ones anyway.
Of course.
And but he does actually speak, about the substance of the case. And
interesting. Okay.
So that's been out there now for a couple of weeks, I think.
All right. Let's we definitely are going to keep following this because it's getting more interesting. Every time you think something's clear and in the horizon is being simple and over with, something pops, something.
It's because the story of this case by itself is not very big. Like I said, it's not a very strong copyright case, but the context of the story, the context around the story is huge because it is yet another extension of toxic fandom. Where people are literally making money or becoming famous by complaining about, what's been done to their franchises. And there's a sufficiently large well of, I don't want to use the term hatred, but, antipathy towards what's being done to some of these classic franchises that, again, if you stoke those flames, you're going to get an explosion, and that explosion is revealing itself here in terms of tens of thousands of dollars, falling into a bank account.
Yep.
People want to give out money. That's really, my bank account's always open.
I know. I'm like, but you know what? The thing is that, he got some people to give him some tips on how to milk things. So it seems to me. Some of it he's doing good on his own, but I think some of the help, like helping his GoFundMe and all that, getting the sympathy going and the whole, we're going to fight against the big corporate monsters that CBS is. That's all something that other people have gotten down as far as like how to spin that narrative. So they're just trying to say, hey, you know what? This guy here, we need to help this guy, bringing him into our circles, and you guys help him out, and it's working.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they have to come up with something because beginning of the year, YouTube's no longer going to be their financial cash cow because YouTube changes are going to be hurting a lot of these creators, and they're not going to be able to make money.
They'll find some other platform. There's plenty of platforms.
No, I mean, they're moving to Patreon.
They have one, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, YouTube will continue to be an important outlet for their content.
It will, but they can switch to Facebook, like we're doing right now in Facebook. They can do that. They can just make people.
Facebook ain't no YouTube. Dude.
No, what I mean is they can go to the communities that have already built and they can link, and a lot of people are doing this. They'll link to their Patreon, and you can watch it on their Patreon. And at the same time, they're advertising their Patreon, so it kind of kills. It kind of helps them.
You'll see some experimentation around
Yeah,
things
yeah.
like that. You need to make it as smooth as possible. And right now,
I like that.
right now, the smoothest path is
cold
YouTube.
down here, guys.
Wow.
You're just in time, Ross, because I was getting ready to switch. I was waiting for you to switch, talking a little bit about the short track trailers. But I didn't expect you to come back so colorful. You look like Carl Weathers in Rocky IV.
I found this coat
You look
at a
good,
thrift
man.
shop here in town. I could not say no to it.
A little bit like Homelander, except you're
I
not
also
blonde.
needed something hot to warm me up. There's no heat in this basement.
You need a space heater, bud. Get a space heater.
That's what I have right down here.
I have a space heater.
Here's the thing
Yeah.
about that, George. There is no outlet in this room.
All right, that would
at
make it
all.
hard.
So
Down
in
here.
order to get power to the computer and everything else in here, I
Simpson
had
cords.
to rewire a new cover, a new socket in the ceiling that has a plug connected to it.
What about an
single
extension
outlet
cord?
That George, if I add any more load to what's going on,
You
I'm
blow a
gonna
circuit,
set
yeah,
something
yeah.
on fire.
Especially
All right, I hear ya.
because they use a lot of power.
Yeah, they do actually. Well, the one I got from
Electronics,
Amazon.
very
Good.
little power. Heaters, a lot of power.
Well, the one I got was recommended because of Amazon, because 5 stars, because of how it didn't use a lot of wattage that causes the I would with what you're
Back
describing.
at
Yeah,
the podcast.
back at the podcast. Let's start with Ross on this one. Ross, did you see that short trek trailer for the next one called Ask Not with Pike?
No.
Okay, then that was a bad choice to choose for the first person. Do you want to watch it right now and just react to it? I mean, why the
Sure.
hell not, right, people? Hold on, let me just
Now
get
that
this.
I'm-
It will
now that I'm awake,
demonetize our podcast.
I was dying
No.
there for a minute.
No, it's not even like a couple of minutes. It's just a short trek trailer.
It's about a minute, and they made.
You know what? We can argue for commentary because we are going to comment on it, right?
Yeah, but they still might do it. They're
It's
being
worth it.
sticklers about it.
Yeah, but it's worth it. Okay, because like I said, we are commenting on the trailer. We're not just showing it.
Then we
Sharing
need
it.
to comment over the trailer.
Yeah.
No, it just says commentary, like what Sean showed
No,
us.
That's
Um,
not actually correct. So, and I think.
Well, I'm just saying how it worked last time was short track. It's called Astronaut right here. Hang on. Make this bigger screen. Go to Zoom here. Justin's got his things going. Okay, here we go. Share. Share computer sound. And there, and all right, you guys ready? The short trek trailer, Ask Not.
A few hours ago, the Enterprise picked up a distress call from the USS Bowman. I need you to let me out of here.
You're a prisoner. Your orders carry no weight anymore.
Cadet, I am giving you a direct order to release me.
That only applies to an active captain.
When this is all done, you will never see the inside of a starship again.
Ooh. What'd you think,
Okay.
Ross?
A cadet that apparently takes control of a ship.
There's so the description in the header says about something about an attack. There's an attack on Starbase 28. From what I've gathered from hearing what it says in the thing, I'm thinking she was planted by whatever planet she's from to prepare to help from the inside of Starfleet as far as some kind of a terrorist type group.
I would make.
How
that-
did you
No,
get
can't
that?
come to that. Come on, George.
There's way
no,
too little
no,
information.
no.
Justin,
That's complete speculation.
I know
Yeah.
it's speculation, but yeah, it's a cadet, obviously, and apparently for some reason she takes Pike.
The point of a trailer or a teaser is just to make you curious, and it
Right.
does that. So, good on them. We are all wondering why a cadet is holding a captain prisoner. So cool. I can't wait to find out in just
1
under
week.
A week. Yeah,
Yep.
November 14th.
A couple days after Mandalorian premieres,
Oh yeah.
just a couple days after. In fact, that Friday versus the Tuesday, third, whatever it is that Mandalorian's on. But yeah, so I mean, This is the last live one, by the way, until the Picard prequel in January, which is Children of Mars. The next two after that are animated. Whether one of them is a cartoon 2D, and one of them, I believe, is 3D. Nice. And I think they might offer something for those other two shows, but it could be something totally unrelated too. They haven't confirmed that. But yeah, this is the last live action one, and the last one with the Pike and any of those people.
No, it's the last. The Children of Mars is not animated.
No, that's what I mean. Until we get to Children of Mars, and
so
that's in January.
The last one. It's the second to last live.
Well, when I said last one, I meant
you said before Picard.
Okay,
there's one more before Picard.
There is, but I meant like there's two more before Picard. Let me rephrase. It's the last one with the Pike gang, the Enterprise, that era. The next two were animated, and then we have Children of Mars, which is the prequel to Picard. So I'm curious, though. I was going to call you Picard. Carlos, Justin and I, that would have been an honor. Justin and I got into a little bit of a debate earlier today. Now, other than obviously the Spock coming on board Enterprise for the first one with number one, they have been very vague as to when the trouble with Edward and this next one. Do you think that these two take place before season 1 of Discovery or after season 2 of Discovery?
That's a good question. I have no idea.
I don't either.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have enough information to really know that. Now, I would say clearly the first one with Spock,
right,
was before Discovery because it's when he first came aboard, which was
Correct.
years before Discovery.
Right.
So that one we do know was before Discovery. This second one, Trouble with Edward, hard to say.
I don't even think they gave a start date. If they did, that would.
The point of the Trouble with Edward is it could take place at any point in Pike's career on the Enterprise.
Yeah.
All the way up to before he becomes Wheelie Pike.
Yeah, and that's 10 years
Justin?
after. Beeps? Anything? He has beeps. Cute. He missed it. There you go.
Thank you, Justin.
Yeah, and there's, like I was telling Justin, there's 10 years after season 2 of Discovery as far as when that happens to him. So, anyways,
yeah,
I think it looks good.
Yeah, that's 10 years worth of thing, and it may not really matter when it is because it could be just timeless stories. The thing with Tribbles is all we have to know is that it happens before the Tribbles episode in the original series. So that could be
that's true. The only reason I'm leaning towards this after season 2 of Discovery is because after I thought about it, they mentioned some specific things about knowing how the Tribbles went into Klingon space and what the Klingons did, and they hadn't had any contact with the Klingons prior to the first episode of Discovery for decades. So, it kind of gives a little bit of a clue that it could have been after.
Maybe. I mean, the thing is that I'll have to rewatch that, but they can know that it's going into Klingon space without knowing what happened there.
Yeah, that's true.
So, they can see the direction in which. No,
but didn't they mention the Klingons? And see, that's what I can't remember if they said the Klingons did something or if they just said it went into Klingon space. That's what I don't.
We know that at some point they have interactions with Klingons because Tribbles hate Klingons and Klingons hate Tribbles.
Right.
So that's been established forever. So
I guess it really doesn't matter, but
we know it's before that. But
yeah,
you can't tell absolutely
for
sure. I mean, I'll give it a rewatch and see if there's
and I don't even think if they give star dates, which I wasn't paying attention to, but if they did, that might help. But other than that, that's about the only thing that would really confirm it, unless the producers come out and say, which I'm sure one day they will, maybe at a convention. So yeah, that trailer looks good. Let's jump to I want to talk about this, even though Justin didn't think it was a good topic, but I think there's been a lot of controversy about this. They announced that they're making a Vietnam era movie and they're going to use James Dean's digital face on a character, and they got the permission from the James Dean estate. Some people are outraged by this. They don't think it matters if because half the family that gave permission never even met him. They're like descendants. And other people think that this is what people have been worried about ever since before Tarkin showed up in Rogue One, which is the precedent of...
There is a big difference between Tarkin in Rogue One and this. The studio that's doing this is billing this as casting James Dean himself.
That's messed up.
Not some actor that is portraying James Dean. They are billing this as starring James Dean.
See, now I didn't know that. That's messed up, in my opinion. That's where they're going. It's like using a likeness is one thing, but actually saying, a dead man is the one starring this movie. When
the Tarkin that we saw in Rogue One was essentially a costume of Tarkin, not a holographic zombie of an individual.
Yeah, and they didn't bill it as the actor was playing him.
No, he was credited as the person who did the voice.
And they pick someone with a close face. That's how they do these things. They pick someone with similar features so that it makes it easier to mask them. Carlos, what do you think about this? I think it's I don't know.
Well, I mean, on one level, I am impressed by the technology if they actually can move it out of the uncanny valley and into, a really realistic depiction of a formerly living person, to the degree that it actually looks, acts, and sounds like a living human being. That's a high bar. And, I noticed that they didn't really talk about like how much of this movie he's in, at least in the article that I read. So, at this point, it may still be a gimmick. Certainly with Tarkin and with, young Leia, it was still kind of at the gimmick stage. But usually gimmicks like that do get better. And so it's, quite possible, but that by the time this gets produced, the technology may be good enough. I mean, there was a time when, CGI did a terrible job of realistic portraying hair. Well, that's been solved. Right. So we'll have to see. So on one level, I'm impressed by the technology and the development, assuming that they pull it off. So that's on one hand. On the other hand, I like humans. I like, part of what I find compelling about acting performances by actual human beings is the knowledge that a human being's blood, sweat, and tears are going into that performance. That it's not just the result of engineering.
In this case, the way they do it, it is. It's just that the difference is that the mask that they digitally put on the actor's face just makes it. They pick somebody who has enough similarities that they can make it match up to look like. For example, you got these impressionists that say play Elvis or Marilyn Monroe.
There's still a huge difference.
I'm just saying that the way technology is getting, it makes it easy, but you have to pick the right actor whose facial features.
And that's another thing. The company that's doing this is already talking about doing it again with other clients that are no longer with us.
Like who? Marilyn Monroe or anybody like that? Elvis?
Note the wording, George. Clients that are no longer with us.
In other words, people they used to be under their agency.
No. The estates off of there.
Yeah, I have a problem with this being allowed because,
the only people who have any say over this are his estate. That's it.
But still, he can have an opinion. What's your problem with it, Justin?
With this being allowed, period. Because where does it end? We're putting dead people in movies, and now what? Look, where does it end?
They are entitled to do whatever they want.
I don't have a problem with it in general as an art form.
The problem. The problem is whether audiences are going to accept it. Right now we're hearing a lot of hue and cry from human actors. Chris Evans, I think, was talking about how horrible it is, and Elijah Wood complained about it. And so there are many, many others, real actors, because this poses a real threat, an existential threat to their careers.
Yeah,
is if you can just resurrect dead actors and they won't cost as much as a real actor.
But the person that does the voice though still has to pull it off. Though there is some work.
But they could get anybody who could passably do the voice.
Yeah,
no need
and voice actors are paid a lot less.
Let me point out something though that remember when before they figured out how they were going to use Carrie Fisher in the new Star Wars, the debate was that even though the family of Carrie Fisher was willing to allow the digital reconstruction, they knew there was going to be a controversy about people believing whether that's like it's too soon. Now, here's my thing. So far, they're picking actors to do this with that had long since dead. Now, if it had been used, if a recently passed away actor like Carrie Fisher, it's still too soon. JG had to find a different way to do this without offending people. So this is where it gets tricky. How long does the actor have to be dead before they decide that it's in good taste?
It depends on the actor.
Yeah.
Robin Williams, for example, put a 50-year hold on the use of his likeness.
We'll say that's.
He knew.
Yeah, but I mean, like Heath Ledger. If they want to bring Heath Ledger back as the Joker, for example, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? It's like going to become a thing where. How long has it been?
But go a generation or two forward, and maybe people would.
What happens whenever they start, buying the rights for actors' images, and now you no longer have to pay the actor for the movie. They can just use your image to do whatever.
Well, and that's you're exactly right, Justin. And that's where the push is going to come.
Likeness is always something that actors have to put in writing.
Yeah, but that's not the point. The point is whether, when I said this is an existential issue with regards to their careers, they won't have a career.
The actor would say, "I don't want to do this because it's not going to be enough money." Well, okay, whatever. We have rights to your image.
I don't know. That's sort of the same argument as like when you have the automatic checkout without people. People are going to lose jobs. I don't think it's going to get that crazy anytime.
I would not.
To me, they parodied this in BoJack Horseman.
Yeah. No, I mean this has been a possibility people have been considering for over at least a decade.
I just think it's a ways away before it gets to that threat level. As far as
it's already here.
Yeah, but as far as really being a threat,
look at all the Disney live action remakes, live action remakes of Lion King.
You can go,
but what makes those remakes possible, what sells people on them, are the human performances behind them. So even though you're seeing,
like Andy Serkis when he does stuff,
like what?
Like Andy Serkis whenever he does the mocap stuff. Sorry, I thought I was thinking circus. Like
like
Planet of the Apes and all that.
The key sticking point for me with this specific issue is the fact that they haven't said who's going to be doing the voice of James Dean. They've just said, "Hey, look, we're bringing James Dean back from the dead to do a movie."
Yeah,
specifically that individual. They aren't talking about who's going to portray him and who's going to be acting.
That will be meaningless. They're gonna hire someone. Probably that actor will take it because actors
probably non-union
need gigs. No, it'll be union. It'll have to be union.
Yeah.
But it'll be less than if they're not a famous person, they're just not going to command much more than scale.
No, you're right. It's the press is going to focus on the fact James Dean's being resurrected, and they already are focusing on that. So
so I mean, this will literally come down to whether or not audiences are willing to accept this. And because even if it's perfect, they may be say it's remarkable that they've been able to pull this off, but I'm not interested in seeing a dead actor.
That's about how I feel.
It's sort of like a zombification of actors. And I wouldn't be surprised if you saw like an actual strike by
protest
SAG and AFTRA in protest, basically saying we won't be in any movies unless you promise to not do this.
You know what? I can buy that because
I wouldn't be surprised to see it happen.
It would be a legitimate concern for them. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, no, more than legitimate. It's existential. It literally means they will exist or not exist because of whether or not this technology works.
Yeah, and they have to spend so much money to render these scenes too. They have to figure out whether it's worth it as far as what they pay the actor versus just rendering. I'm sure that's cheaper.
Well,
but still.
Sure, but that'll come. Those costs always come down
with technology. Yeah, that's true. It always comes down.
That's only a temporary issue. What you pay actors is a huge issue. So there's not a clear answer. It will basically come down to what the public thinks. Are you going to be okay with having to deal with fake actors?
Right.
They're not people you can follow on Instagram and be involved in their lives or feel like you're involved in their lives. That's what being a celebrity is today. Is you have to have this social media presence. Well, dead James Dean is not going to be an authentic social media presence.
I have a feeling they'll make like a fake James Dean. It'll get creepy. It'll get creepy. They'll get it creepy.
You'll know that it's fake.
Right, but what I'm saying is it's going to get creepy. That's what's going to happen. And
They got bots now that you can carry on conversations with, and you have no idea it's a fake person,
right,
at all.
That's true.
That's just how good this stuff is now.
All right, let's talk a little bit about because I've been meaning to talk about this for a couple of weeks, but then I'm glad we waited because then they confirmed even more incredible actors being added to this new Batman movie, The Batman. Jesus, at first it was just like, okay, Zoe Kravitz is playing Catwoman, and then whoever, and then now it's like we got who do we got? We've got who was the guy that was announced as Colin Farrell was announced as the Penguin, and then we've got who's the other one? Why am I having a brain fart? The Batman.
Honestly, I'm dimly aware of it, but I don't want to get too invested at this point because it's all still speculation. So
I thought they confirmed it. I thought they.
Well, no, I mean in general, just the whole movie is still in development, and the cast isn't finalized or whatever. I'll
me up
wait
when they start filming.
Yeah, I'm with Ross. Until then, it's just like fan wank.
Yeah. So far, though, I mean, I'm pretty impressed with who they got. Zoe Kravitz is a great actress.
No, I mean the ones
she can make a great.
Great. I don't have that much investment until they really get into the more creative aspects of the film.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, and the other thing people are wondering is, Colin Farrell. Yeah, he has been. Oh, you're right. He's listed as rumored on IMDb. Oh, and Andy Serkis is rumored to be Alfred. So,
rumor being the key.
Rumored. Edward Nashton is the Riddler, confirmed. Catwoman is Zoe. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, hold on a second. All right, so I'll turn down the gain. Sorry, I did turn it up a lot. Is that any better?
Well, you have to keep talking.
Oh, is that any better?
No, you're still kind of loud.
Well, I turned it up in this other setting thing I'd have to go into. It would take a minute, but I'll do that. But while I'm doing that,
do the one on the back of your.
Yeah, it is the back, the gain thing.
Okay,
that's what I'm looking at. Keep turning it down.
That's better.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, all right. So let's talk about Ross. You brought up a movie that's coming out that's being worked on with Michael Keaton about a certain Mr. McAfee. Tell us this story.
Most of you probably know about McAfee antivirus software. Well, what you might not know is the founder of McAfee antivirus software sold his stake in the company in the early 2000s and went and retired to live like a kingpin in Belize. He had a small harem of young women. He made his own drugs. He had a rather large kennel of dogs, and he's led a rather interesting life since selling McAfee. He's currently running for president, by the way. I think it's Columbia Pictures, I could be wrong, announced that they are doing a movie about the Wired reporter who went down to Belize to interview him about his life, about the antivirus software and his time afterwards, and gets caught up in the absolute insanity that has been his life in
he's a crazy person
years.
He's definitely a crazy person.
He is certainly eccentric. It's starring Zac Efron as the reporter and Michael Keaton as McAfee.
No, he got changed to Seth Rogen now. He's playing the reporter.
No, it was Seth Rogen.
Oh,
Seth Rogen left, and they recast.
Oh,
Zac
okay.
Efron.
All right.
So with what I know, with that little bit alone of McAfee's story and a bunch of other stuff that's happened, he left Belize after he was suspected of murder, after his dogs were all poisoned, and then his neighbor was dead. Yep. He's currently hanging out on a yacht in the middle of the Caribbean, drifting from one island to another to keep out of the reach of the authorities.
Did you read how he responded to Michael Keaton's casting on what he said in the Twitter?
He was apparently not happy about it.
He said, hey, Michael Keaton, by the way, I'm actually a black man with tattoos. Just saying, I'm not happy with you playing me or something. And he said that Michael Keaton hasn't responded.
black man.
Why would he? I mean, if I was Michael Keaton, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Except with a view towards just as a PR stunt, because people
Right.
will be interested. It'll create more anticipation for the film. In which case, and McAfee should have known that.
I didn't know anything about this till today. When Ross pointed it out, I looked it up and read all the wikis and stuff. And I was just like, wow.
Oh yeah.
I had no idea that this stuff.
I didn't know that.
There's a couple of good resources out there if you want to catch up. Internet Today did a really good 2-part series on him, and just look up his name. You'll find articles and
Sean said there was a documentary on Showtime too. Or something.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, this was a story a few years ago when the murder thing happened, and and there was some other computer security related thing that he came out and weighed in on. I don't remember what it was exactly, but
and funny enough, he was arrested because of a fault in his own cybersecurity.
Well, police didn't pursue or technically charge him as a person of interest in a murder, but it's known that he's being looked at. But for some weird reason, they never tried to go technically into the putting out a charge to make him really be. He's not technically a fugitive, but he paints himself as one. But he's not technically being
a fugitive from Belize,
charged.
A fugitive from the United States, even though he says he's running for president. If half of the stuff that has come out about this guy is included in
some
this
issues
movie, combined with the confirmed casting of both Zac Efron and Michael Keaton, it's going to be a fantastic film. And
could be, because he's a real live character.
His reaction to it will be interesting, and
just the movie itself should be a blast.
Yeah, it should be, because I'm less interested in his reaction, because as long as they focus on really what he did and why he did it and why he said he did it or whatever,
right,
actually need the real guy weighing in on it, because he's going to try to paint him.
Well, part of his paranoia, he claims, is because since he came out with the world's first big antivirus, that all the hackers target him because he's that guy, and he claims that. Well, I could actually believe that one, but still, I mean, he's got some screws loose. But yeah, that should be interesting. That was something I did, totally unaware of, like I said, until today, that was even a thing. And then, but now I'm kind of curious about that. So
yeah, it could be. I vaguely remember the Wired story on this. I think that may have been when I first heard about it. And I remember it being interesting, because it's this guy who's, literally the father of modern antivirus software, who ended up not doing anything in the tech industry anymore, and just becoming rich and eccentric. So and potentially murdering his neighbor. Who knows? Yeah,
I know. You're gonna wonder what if he wasn't living in Belize, things would be a little different, because they don't seem to jump right on these things.
Does weird things to you. I mean, just look at Notch, the creator of Minecraft.
I don't even know where Belize is. Whereabouts is
it? It's in Central America.
Okay, because for some weird, have you?
Yeah.
For some reason, their justice system, you would think if it was the United States where even suspecting him, they would have had extradition orders and all that shit, but nothing. He's like, they're going to try to extradite me. No, they don't care.
Keep in mind, he lived in a walled-off manor. Right. He had several dozen dogs and armed guards. Well-armed guards.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so unless they're willing to literally do a military mission to extract him, and they may not have a strong enough case to commit those kinds of resources. Which is,
it's a little different.
The money he brings in taxes.
Right. Well, that's probably true. Definitely. So let's get on to my favorite. Well, starting to become my favorite part of the show, the last part, which is what are we watching? And I'm watching. I know Carlos watches. I watch. I don't know about you guys. Mm-hmm. His Dark Materials. What do you think, Carlos?
I really enjoyed the first episode.
Me too.
I didn't even know this series of books existed until I went my first visit to England, and there was a stage adaptation of his Dark Materials, and it was basically 3 separate shows, one for each book, I guess.
How long ago was this?
This was probably more than 10 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Would have been like maybe 2008 or 2009, something like that. Okay. Anyway, so I didn't know anything about this. And so I was there with friends, and we happened to try, that, buy last minute tickets to the theater kind of thing. It was at the National Theater. And it was cheap. It was like $35. Maybe it was 70. Back then, the dollar was terrible.
Don't you mean pounds?
Well, the pound, yeah. I mean, the pound was like, it was £2 to $1, and
you're just breaking it down. Okay.
I was just spending so much money there, and the only way I could deal with it was by imagining pounds were dollars, and then everything seemed like a bargain.
Okay.
So it could have been £35, in which case I actually paid $70. But anyway, I went, and that was my introduction to his Dark Materials, the stories and the books and whatever. And the stage version was actually pretty good. It made me want to see, the next production. But I never saw a stage version in the U.S. That there was a stage version in the U.S. There might have been, but I wasn't aware of one. And then I heard that they were making a feature film, and of course, we know what happened with that, which it was kind of an overreach. And under promise, because
I saw the
controversial nature of the film. But I think we mentioned last week the idea that this it's another kind of story that works better on television than it does on the big screen.
Well, the film got controversy because they ignored the religious things that caused like the Catholic Church to be outraged for certain subject matters that having to do with the Garden of Eden and certain things that go into the religious aspects of, and they kind of shied away from that when they did the movie adaptation.
Basically it's the writer of the book is a sharp critic of the Catholic Church,
right?
And his books reflect that. Yep. And as a movie on the big screen, where to be successful you have to create stuff that is going to appeal to a broad audience, and unfortunately a broad audience is easily appealed to, and the Catholic Church did that in this case. And they ended up, it was one of those classic things where they ended up soft pedaling the critique, but by doing so they angered the fans of the books because they were like, that's like an integral part of the story, and so they ended up disappointing everyone. And that's what happened. And so the story suffered for that. They also made this decision to not use the book's ending for the ending of the movie. They saved that for the beginning of what was going to be the sequel, except P.S. there was no sequel. So it ends really badly in this weird cliffhanger that just does not feel satisfying in any way whatsoever. And so that also kind of doomed the movie. It just didn't make enough money, and the whole planned franchise for this never materialized. But
the actors,
HBO, again, they were great. There were great performances in the movie. Nicole Kidman particularly stood out. And
I was talking about the show, not the movie, but that's okay.
Oh, well, yeah, I was just actually going to move to the show because the woman who plays the same role that Nicole Kidman did, also really good. Yep. Almost all of the characters and actors, James McAvoy is great in it. I don't remember
he's awesome,
of the little boy, but he's
Roger.
Fantastic. Well, I mean the name of the actor.
Oh, I don't remember either. He's been in a lot of stuff, but yeah.
But Lyra, the girl, the main character, I actually was not that impressed with her. I don't think she was bad.
I have mixed about her.
Yeah, and maybe this gets better as you move on.
She pulls off good.
Yeah, I'm just not. She didn't strike me as the strongest character.
I felt the way in the beginning, but by the end of the first episode, I was starting to. And then they showed the look ahead for the season, and I'm starting to feel like she's going to grow on us.
The look ahead looked great. So I mean, hopefully they just put her in a better situation. I mean, she spends a good chunk of the first episode like literally hidden in a
and hanging out with Roger. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, my only discomfort with it is that she's clearly an important character. There's like a whole it's like a Harry Potter thing, the one. And so there's this whole thing. Her parents also dead. It's a thing. And she's the one who will save the world from the horrible things that what they.
Well, I know I'm not going to spoil anything, but I know things from the second and third book that they're going to use in this series. I don't know how far ahead you know about the story.
I don't know much beyond the first book because again, I only saw.
This is why the Catholic Church freaked out, and it doesn't spoil anything. I'm just going to say that when you think you know what's going to happen, that it's going to follow a predictable path, it gets interesting and very mature. And you'll be surprised by the end of the third. If they handle the material the way I think they're going to, which is ironic, Dark Materials, because they could do that through 3 seasons, I guess, of the show.
Yeah, they're planning a season per book.
Yeah.
So, and I think, is it 10 episodes?
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, it gives it time to breathe, room to breathe, which I think will help make it really good. And same, just like we're seeing with Watchmen,
Right. The only difference with Watchmen, though, is this is all new. It's not based on a specific story. This is their new interpretation of what could happen next. Whereas this is an adaptation, which they're going to do their way.
But the themes are the same, and they're just placed in an updated setting. So it's still in some ways an adaptation of the original work. I mean, that's the only reason people are watching, because they're interested in seeing how they're bringing the themes behind the original comic to life.
Right. Let's ask, before he falls asleep, Ross, and for time purposes, let's ask Ross what he's watching.
Well, I'm caught up on Titans.
And then we'll go back to, you caught up on Titans?
Yep. And season 7 or
Sorry, you lagged.
7.
You froze for a minute there. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Yeah,
you froze. You froze right after I'm caught up on Titans. Yeah, you're back.
I'm caught up on Titans, and 2 series that I've been eager looking forward to have begun this week. Volume 7 of Ruby, Rooster Teeth's animated series about a group of monster hunters crusading about the world trying to save it. Mm-hmm. They have ventured to the northern continent of Mantle for the Kingdom of Atlas, looking for safety and find conflict. And the other is Arizona Circle, another Rooster Teeth production, a live-action sketch or a dark comedy sketch series that is very, very bizarre, very fun, very weird, that you'd probably enjoy.
Cool. I also have been. What was I going to tell Carlos? Oh, I also have been watching. I finished season 3 of Mr. Robot. I can't watch season 4 because I don't want to pay until it comes out on Amazon for free. But season 3, the way it ended. Have you seen the final season, Carlos?
No.
Okay.
No, I'll have to. Binge
I'm not the only one then. So, Justin, I know that you're not as caught up as I was, unless you jumped ahead recently. Where are you on Mr. Robot? What else are you watching?
I am done with season 3. I'm not going to do season 4 until it comes out.
Right.
You watch it. I've actually started a rewatch of Star Trek Next Generation. Getting ready just to kind of brush up. It's been a while. Go back and rewatch the old shows. Get ready for new stuff coming.
All right. Well, one of the things I want to announce to the audience, since there's still people watching before we go, we decided to go and do something very interesting starting next show. First of all, The Mandalorian starts next week, so we're going to be regularly doing spoiler-free reviews of each episode. There's 10 of them. So you'll have a Mandalorian segment for the next 10 weeks. Also, we came up with an idea that we're going to do a thing where we're going to do a poll, and we're going to pick from the best Picard episodes of TNG, and we're going to, whatever the poll suggests each week, we're going to rewatch that and review that Picard episode for each of the next shows as we get everybody prepared as we lead up to the series, Star Trek Picard. So that will be interesting. That way we can kind of get reminded of the best of Picard and make it fun. So
maybe we do like a top 10 or something, or top 5. And
I'll do it. Go ahead.
I was going to say, it'll just be interesting how many fights we get into over the Picard we're going to see, in January 2020,
right?
Versus the Picard that we're going to be discussing from
the
1980s.
I think this is going to be a good idea, especially on days that we're not going to have any Trek news. And
there's some weeks like this week there just isn't anything new except for the short Trek trailer, to talk about. So but it's logical too, because we're getting kind of the lead in towards Picard. So, and then in January before the show comes out, they're going to have that final short trek with because we already talked about this. There's 2 animated ones, and then
Countdown.
the countdown, right?
Yeah.
Literally, and the comic, the new one, the version of it. Okay, so I want to thank everyone for joining us for this new live Super Geeks. You'll notice that there's a few less of the regulars. So, people are getting busy and have things going on, so it's going to always be hit, miss, and who's here. Getting towards winter, people have stuff going on. That's the cool thing about having a multiple host, though, because we can always have at least a few people. But Carlos, where can people find you on social media?
I am on the Axe Monitor Facebook group. And where else am I? Oh, on Twitter at @cpedraza and also at Axe Monitor, and on the web at axemonitor.com.
Cool. What about you, Ross?
Twitch.live_love_play on Twitch. Sorry, I'm about out of it here.
It's the cold, but you look great.
It's the cold,
Ross.
but I was also up at 4 a.m. this morning.
Oh, yeah. You have a kid, so it's hard to take naps, I'm sure. Justin, any particular place you want to promote of where to find you in the future?
Axe Monitor, Real Super Geeks Facebook group, Twitch.com, Omega J. I'm everywhere.
Yeah, Justin's relaunching his old Twitch channel soon, Omega J. We'll let him pimp that as time goes on. He's ready to do it. All right, and Carlos, by the way, real quick, tell us about what your movie was that just got a premiere.
Oh, so I made a movie back in 2013. It was my second film called The Dark Place. It's a mystery thriller set on a wine estate in Northern California, though we shot it just outside Portland. So it was released in, I think, 2014. And we just got a new round of, this is really weird. Normally you get your theatrical release before you go digital. There was enough interest in the movie to bring it back to theaters, even though it's actually available on iTunes and Amazon Prime, and I don't remember if it's on Netflix anymore. It was for a while. Anyway, so it went to cities I've always wanted to have my films play in. It was in New York a couple weeks ago. This week it was in San Francisco, and next week it will be in Los Angeles. So
I'll provide a link to that too. If you can give me a good link for where people should go for, I'll put that in this YouTube also.
Sure. Yeah.
So that and the Axe Monitor article. All right. Well, next week Disney Plus launches. There's going to be a lot of craziness, and then we get other shows as winter and New Year's. Doctor Who's coming back. That'll be a sideshow.
Woo!
Join us next week. It's going to be
Epic.
Amanda-licious.
Oh, I like that actually. Yeah. All right, you guys.
Sorry.
Mandalicious. #Mandalicious. That's going to be our new thing.
Oh, actually, that sounds.
And with Ross's eyebrows, that's going to be something. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a hashtag. Hashtag. His eyebrows are Mandalicious.
There you go. Because we're triangle.
All right, everybody that joined us, I want to thank you for stopping by our little chat, and we will talk to you the next time. Peace out,
next
people.
week, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Mandalicious.